Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Asher Marketing Podcast. This podcast is hosted by Asher Agency, a full-service partner to clients nationwide. Asher's services include media planning, creative, digital and social, website development, public relations, printing and fulfillment, and more. Anything you need to connect with your prospects and tell your story. To learn more, visit asheragency.com or contact us at hello@asheragency.com. My guest is Megan Bennett. Megan, how you doing?
I'm good, Anthony. How are you?
I am good. Thank you so much for doing this on a busy day when you had a back-to-school day for your 3-year-old daughter. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yep. So Reagan's in a little preschool program. So today we got to go back and meet her teacher for the year and some of her new friends and old friends. So it was really cute and but busy.
Yeah.
Always something going on.
Well, hopefully not a lot of controversy in preschool. That will come later. But
yeah, exactly.
yeah, for now it's all smiles and everyone's happy and everyone's excited to go to preschool.
Yep.
So,
yeah, playing on the playground and hugging her old friends, and it was cute.
Good. Well, good. Well, hopefully your experience is different than mine because my experience is that changes in a few years. But at least you're off to a good start. Well, thanks for doing this. You are one of our more interesting guests because you're more behind the scenes at Asher, but you have a really important role because you own the place. And we're going to talk about that in detail in just a few minutes. So my guess is, Megan, when you were growing up, you didn't say, boy, someday I hope to co-own an ad agency. Correct. Is that correct? Okay.
Correct.
So when you were thinking about careers, tell us a little bit about what you were initially thinking. When did you start thinking about careers? What did that look like? And where did you go from there?
Yeah, I think when I was younger, I always kind of had an affinity to numbers and kind of keeping things orderly.
Okay.
So, fairly good student throughout the years, but my one C that I ever got was in art in 8th grade.
Okay.
So from an early age, I knew that wasn't going to be my thing. And my parents both just kind of encouraged me to say, hey, you're definitely more on the analytical side, number side. Why don't you go into engineering or finance?
Yeah.
And so that kind of kicked me off down the path.
And you grew up central Indiana, correct?
Yep, I grew up in Carmel, Indiana.
Okay, so that takes you to IU. You're in the Kelley School of Business, correct?
Yep, correct. Well, I did my undergrad at Boston College.
Okay.
I did my master's.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Your neck of the woods.
Yeah, that's right. So what was it about Boston College that was intriguing to you, other than it was in a really fun city to be a college student?
So my older sister went to Boston College.
Okay.
And so I kind of followed her out there, went and visited her and had a great time visiting, and went through the whole college application process, and kind of back to what I said before, I applied to a couple engineering schools and a couple finance schools and got into Boston College School of Management.
Okay.
And that took me down the finance path.
And then you started your career in Boston.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that, how you were thinking about your career at that point. What were you thinking, I want to stay in Boston the rest of my life? Or was it like, this is fun for now, but eventually I want to move back home?
It ebbed and flowed.
Yeah.
I liked Boston a lot. I mean, I had so much fun there. I still have lifelong friends that live in Boston. I really enjoyed the culture and the fast pace.
Yeah.
And after Boston College, I started down the finance track and worked at different investment firms in the Boston area. And that was fun because you're young, you're right out of school, you have a job, you're going out with friends, and loved that. But the older I got, I was kind of like, okay, I think someday if I wanted to, get married and get settled down, I'd like to be back in the Midwest and closer to family.
Okay, so eventually you make that decision when you come back and go to IU.
For my master's,
Was that the catalyst? Was it, I'm going to go to IU? Was it family? Was there something that brought you back here before you decided to go to IU?
Definitely family, but interestingly enough, I worked on a trading floor at a company called Big Bank, Custodian Bank in Boston called State Street. And the guy that sat behind me was a big-time portfolio manager, and he was like, oh, you're applying to business schools? I'm a Kelley grad.
Oh, wow.
And so small world, I was like, well, I'm really interested in Kelley, and he really pushed me down that path and wrote me a letter of recommendation.
Oh, wow.
And he stayed a good mentor over the years.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, that's great. So you're far along, I would say far along, but you've had a couple jobs in Massachusetts before you start your master's degree.
Yeah.
What are you thinking the trajectory is going to be at that point? Are you thinking more of the same? You're going to stay in financial advising, or where is it that you want to go at that point?
Definitely wanted to stay in the finance and the investment side. Did a lot of work on finance and investment in my master's degree. That's when I started the CFA program, Chartered Financial Analyst designation, and took a bunch of really difficult tests to finally pass that. And was able to kind of get started back in that investment career after business school.
Okay. So you took all these really difficult tests, and now that's all in the rearview
here
mirror,
I
and you
am.
don't use any of it.
Exactly. But I did impress my husband on our first date.
Okay.
He was like, "You have your CFA? That's really cool." I'm like, "I know." No.
So how did you and Matt meet? Was it at IU?
No, I was back in Indianapolis at that time, and we met online.
Okay.
Yeah, we met on Bumble.
So I'm assuming that was the catalyst for you coming to Fort Wayne. Is that correct? All right. So you come to this, you probably hadn't spent much time in Fort Wayne at that point?
Never been here in my life.
What are your first impressions of Fort Wayne coming from bigger cities like central Indiana and Boston?
I was impressed from the start. Matt had an apartment on the ballpark near where the Tin Caps play.
Yeah.
And they have the fireworks every night.
Yeah.
And I was like, this place is cool. And you could walk to different bars and restaurants. And he has a lot of family and friends and colleagues here. So I feel like I was accepted really quickly. And I liked Fort Wayne from the start.
Well, and I think it's all a matter of perspective, right? Because I have friends from Boston who visit, and they think Fort Wayne is great in a different way than Boston is. They're like, wow, you have no traffic. You actually, can afford a house. All these things that aren't true in the greater Boston area. It's obviously a bigger place and has different amenities. But Fort Wayne's pretty cool, and it's become pretty great over the last 10 or 15 years for sure.
Yes. Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
So where are you working when you first come to Fort Wayne?
I started out working on the IU Health Project a little bit.
Okay.
And then I was introduced to Tom and Kara pretty quickly, and their CFO, Karen Richter, who I'm sure you remember well.
Karen was amazing. Loved working with her.
Yes. She was retiring.
Yep.
And so they reached out. I had kind of known Tom and Kara through my husband and some of their friends, and was able to start in February of 2019.
All right. So you're going from a career where you'd really only been in the financial world, surrounded by folks who are in the financial world. And then you come here.
Right.
What is that like? What's the initial impression of working with designers and web developers and people who maybe aren't as financially minded as the folks you used to work with?
My biggest culture shock moment when I started working here was that people wore like ball caps. I was like, this is a place of work and people are wearing ball caps. I mean, the little did I know that was just the beginning.
I remember early on, there were a few days when I was in shorts and flip-flops, and I'm like, I think Megan probably would prefer that I not be doing that.
No, and I mean, it was culture shock in the best way.
Yeah.
It's a really great place to be, and we can talk about that later. Yeah. But it was an interesting change, especially the culture of the work. I feel like in my prior jobs, it was very competitive, very intense. You were, expected to compete really with your peers. Yeah. And I don't really feel that here. I feel a lot of more collegial energy, and a lot of people are helping each other out for the greater good. Yeah,
well, one of the things, and I want to hear your description of Asher in just a second, but one of the things when people ask me about working here that I genuinely believe is we have good humans, people who generally want to support each other, they want to help each other. And that might not sound like rocket science, but I've worked in places where that isn't true, and it's kind of nice when you have it.
Yep, it really, really is. It makes a huge difference. And our people are our biggest asset, and I can't say that enough.
So you make a big change when you and Kara buy the business, and I want to kind of lead up to that. So you're here as CFO, which is a really critically important position. You're on the management team, and you have a prominent role, but then it gets even more prominent when you and Kara start thinking about what if we were able to purchase the business back from the holding company and be independent? What are you thinking during that time? Give me a little bit of insight into what those conversations are like. What are the fears that you have? What are some of the things you're excited about? And what maybe is in between all those things?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, before I moved to Fort Wayne, I worked on a corporate development team for a business in Carmel, Indiana, and that was very deal-oriented. And I was able to kind of learn a lot about deals and transactions and the legal side and all of the pieces of the puzzle have to come together to buy a business. And so I felt like I had enough knowledge to kind of say, like, Kara, we can do this. You know, this is at the time was a relatively small business. And thought, from the day I started here, I was like, we should have some ownership in this. And of course, Eastport was a great partner for a long time, and they still are in some senses. So when we started talking about it, it just felt right to bring it back to a locally owned business here in Fort Wayne.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's somewhat a reflection of your personality and Kara's personality, where you tend to be, and please correct me if this isn't true, but you're pretty steady. It's like factual, logical, like, I see the numbers, this can work. Kara's a little more emotional.
Oh, yes.
And I think we saw some of that during that time. But how do you describe your partnership with her? Because it is really a partnership in that you're co-owners, you're leading the agency, but you bring different assets to the table. So how do you describe that from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I've said this before. Kara and I are very different, but we're also very similar. We have a very similar set of values. We are very family-oriented people, really are focused on the people here at Asher and our clients. But yes, Kara is emotional and excited, and everyone loves Kara. I mean, I've never met anyone that hasn't said just amazing things about her. And I always say to Matt, my husband, how lucky am I that, you know, I stumbled across Kara to really partner with. And she is an absolutely excellent partner, the best in the business.
So Kara is more the public face, and you're a little bit more behind the scenes. Is that how you want it, or would you prefer, and do you envision yourself taking a more public role over time?
No, I
thought that was the answer, but I didn't want to assume.
I love being behind the scenes. It really... It just gives me joy to think, you know, when I put my feet up at night that, you know, I ran this business well. You know, what did I do today to make things better? I have no interest in getting out there, but it's not I'm not good at it either. I mean, like I try, like occasionally I'll get out there and try.
Well, I guess by the end of this podcast, we'll find out, right?
Exactly. I mean, you've heard me do some public speaking, but it just takes practice, and I don't do it. I like being behind the scenes. I love my team, and but also I'd be lying if I didn't enjoy part of it.
Yeah, for sure.
Getting out there a little bit and being part of the community.
Well, and there's different approaches, right? I think it's really valuable to have two strong leaders who bring different capabilities to the table and who can support each other, but who aren't competing for the same turf all the time. Right. Well, you mentioned your team. Let's talk about them a little bit, because when you talk about an agency, people think about the web developers and the designers, and they're thinking about branding and they're thinking about campaigns. But the financial end is super important if you want to do that work. So how do you get your work done? Who's on the team and what roles do they play?
Love to talk about my team because they're some of my favorite people. So Beth Chester is our controller, and she's kind of my right hand on all things billing and client facing with regards to the finance type stuff. She's super smart. I always say, Beth will occasionally come to me, anything you need me to work on, I'm like, just look for problems.
Yeah.
And that's her strength. She finds holes. She finds things where we need to fix. Things that blah, blah, accounting, boring terms.
Yeah. Well, and you and I have talked about the fact that she can interpret my notes on my billing every month. So she must be pretty smart.
Exactly.
Because sometimes I don't even know what I'm saying.
Exactly. She works with everyone's little nuances to get things right. Tina works on the media team. I just saw the post. She's been here for 10 years.
Yeah.
So she's been here a long time, and she does a lot of media reconciliation stuff, but she also works on a lot of different accounting related items as well. Super smart, and has been here a long time and incredibly loyal and reliable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jamie is newer to the team, but also really strong and works with a lot of our franchise clients on the billing side. and she's excellent and immediately became a really important part of the accounting and admin team.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the Queen Glenda, of course, runs, kind of the front office.
Who's been here for almost 20 years now?
I think so. Yeah.
I know that because I was accidentally at her interview. I didn't participate, but Tim and I went to dinner at a place called Buckets that no longer exists, and it was wide-ranging, and there were about 15 different things going on, and one of them happened to be Glenda's interview, and that was shortly after I started, and I was still like, what have I gotten myself into? What's going on here? So, yeah.
Yeah, I can't think of a more loyal employee and dedicated to Asher through and through.
Well, thanks for doing that, because I think those folks sometimes don't get the attention they deserve, not because of any, malice, but just because they are behind the scenes, and they're doing really important work that you don't notice when it's done well, but you sure notice if it isn't, then we're very fortunate that it gets done really well. So, Megan, what are some of the things that are at the top of your list as you think about Asher and your role as co-owner? What's your vision moving forward? What are some of the things you're trying to instill in the team? What are some of the things you're trying to just get done alongside that? Because you're obviously involved in the work of managing the financial aspects of Asher. What's at the top of your list when you look at where your focus is?
Gosh, there's a lot of focuses. Day to day, I remember Karen Richter used to say, let's have a good, clean close. And that's a real goal for me, is just to have everything, organized and be on it and make sure that we're serving our clients and the other team members at Asher well.
Yeah.
So that's just the day to day.
Yeah.
When I think about Asher big picture, I'd love to think about growth. Where are our strengths? Where can we grow? Where can we hire new people? How can we be more efficient with the people that we do have? Looking at our business strategically, what product lines are growing, and when I think about that, I think about Jared and the new video hire. So that's just an example of somewhere where we're trying to grow. And that's Kara and I's almost daily conversation is what's next.
Yeah. Well, and it's gotten much more complex. I remember when I started, going back to another Tim Borney story, literally when he and I first did billing together, the first time I did it, it was a blank piece of paper and it was pencil. And even I am no financial mind whatsoever, you know that. Even I was like, there's got to be a better way. Can we try Excel? Can we do that? But just to see how far Asher has come in the 20 years that I've been here, it's phenomenal. And even, Kara did a great job of modernizing Asher and getting us to use technology in a way that really reduced errors and reduced labor. But even in the last, 5 years, we're doing some things that we weren't doing before that allow us, I think, to look forward in a more logical way and to say, hey, where do we have some gaps and where might we have some issues with capacity? Because, that's the thing, is when clients call, we always want to say yes. And, we've got really good people, but they have 24 hours in the day. Because part of your role is the staffing end of it too, is making sure we have the right people. So talk a little bit, if you don't mind, about the competitive environment we're in and what you think Asher does well to compete for talent.
Yep. I also have HR under my area of responsibility here at Asher. And to be honest, a lot of that is shared among the senior managers with regards to recruiting. And for example, you help us out a lot with LinkedIn and various social posts that kind of put our job postings out there. So the hiring and recruiting really is a team effort. However, I hear again and again from staff and from even employees that have left that the culture here is really different and really positive and really unique. Yeah. And that we do put our people first, our employees first. We allow people a lot of flexibility, but at the same time, we set a bar really high for performance. And I personally really like that culture. I like to be challenged. I don't want anyone to say like, oh, this is an easy peasy job, which I don't think anyone here would because we're very busy. But I also want them to be able to put their family first and their external responsibilities first.
Yeah, and I think that's really genuine. There's a lot of organizations that say, well, we're like a family. And with Asher, it's kind of like, we're not your real family. We want you to go home to them. Yep. We want you to feel good about us, but we're going to enable you to have a life outside of work. And that's been true, I would say, almost without exception in my time here. I'm sure this will be true for Reagan if it's not already, but my son felt comfortable walking the halls of Asher when he was, 7, when he was like 9 years old, 10 years old.
Yep.
And, that's still true today. We see a lot of dogs and kids of Asherites roaming the halls. And, we work really hard, but we also know people have complex lives. And I think that's a real recruiting advantage when people feel like, okay, I can be myself and be attentive to the other priorities in my life.
I love that what you just said, I can be myself. I think we did an employee survey, was it last year, I think? And one of the questions is, I can be my true self at work. And I think 9.5 people out of 10 said yes.
Yeah.
And I love that because I come from an industry where you really couldn't be. Yeah. You were really competitive and always on. And this is just a place where it feels comfortable. And someone out there in the business world listening might be like, okay, where you're going to lose like 10% of your productivity because you're allowing your employees this flexibility. Maybe we do, but maybe we don't.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a trade-off that's worth making, and I certainly think it is. So.
Well, and the retention rates are pretty good. So it's like if we're losing productivity, we're gaining in retention.
Exactly. And we're not constantly hiring people.
And not training them.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah, I always say to people, and I say this somewhat facetiously, the best thing about Asher is you can be yourself.
Yes.
The biggest challenge is everybody else is themselves.
and aren't we? Because we have some heated conversations in management team and other times where people really voice their opinions.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love to hear it.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a really good thing. Okay, we're going to transition to the quick hit part of the show, but the good news is it doesn't have to be quick hit at all. You can ramble as long as you like, because I usually do. So what's your best career advice? You've made a big change. You now have the opportunity to influence about 40 people in the work that you do. In observing others in your own work, what do you think is the key to career fulfillment, career success?
Always be learning. Don't be stagnant, because even in my prior jobs, I worked for some managers that were incredibly difficult to work for, incredibly demanding. But boy, I learned a lot.
Yeah.
And now I feel like I can apply some of that experience and knowledge to this role at Asher. And I don't regret that for the world, even though those are a few tough years.
Yeah. No, I think that's really good advice. And, when we hire people on our team, I always look for, number one, do they have a service orientation? Do they understand the clients pay the bills? And while the client isn't always right, you want to put the best effort forward that you can. And number two is being a learner, being someone who is eager to learn new things, because the degree to which this world has changed over the last 20 years is only accelerating, and people need to be willing to learn, and are they willing to teach what they've learned to other people? And I think we have people who meet that standard and who either have heard your advice or they heard it from someone else, because they seem to reflect that.
Yeah. Yep. Always be learning.
Yep. All right. Second quick hit question has to do with myths or misconceptions about the work you do. This could be myths or misconceptions about Asher. It could even be something that's not appreciated well enough. It could be about the world of being a business owner. It could be the world of the financial side of the business. What's something that you wish was better known or is maybe underappreciated?
I kind of have an interesting take on that question. To me, the accounting world and the finance world, more specifically accounting, but some finance too, are great careers for women. I think that the pay is competitive. The hours have the ability to be flexible, especially on the accounting side, but you get exposed to a lot of different parts of the business through accounting. And you don't even have to be an introvert or like any sort of, you can learn so much in finance and accounting. People think it's sleepy, but it's not. It's a really great career, and it's especially good for women because it can offer you the flexibility and the compensation levels that I think a lot of women look for.
So why do you think more women don't pursue careers in accounting and finance? Is it because historically it's been a male-dominated field?
Probably. Yeah. I don't know. And I actually think there might even today be more women in accounting. I think every year it's getting, to be more balanced as so I don't know, but I would encourage it. Every once in a while someone will ask me like, oh, my daughter, can she shadow? And I'm like, yes, I'm going to tell them all the great things about this career.
Yeah, well, that's great. And we are living proof of that because we have 4 accounting people and they're all female.
Exactly.
So if you're looking for a soft place to start your career, maybe look for an ad agency that needs some financial help.
Yep.
Okay, last quick hit question. And this is one that trips people up sometimes because they think it has to be like a world-changing idea. It really doesn't. I'm just looking for a tool or a way of working that helps you get the job done. It could be, consider it a hack or a tip, just something you use, analog or digital, that helps you be more productive at work.
My second monitor. I have 3. I have 3 monitors and I have 2 at home. I don't know. I don't know how people function on just one monitor.
Well, especially
that's a softball. But
have you gone on vacation with just your laptop?
Yes, it's a misery.
It's terrible.
Yes.
It's terrible. I've even looked into. They have inflatable second screens and things that slide out of your laptop. I was like,
no, I have a travel second monitor. Yeah, my husband is also an accountant, and so he both bought us one during COVID when it was, and I use it a lot, and it's nice because it's not high quality, but it's better than nothing.
Oh, sure. Well, and I take an HDMI cord with me, so if I'm in a hotel, I'll plug into the TV, but hotel TVs are giant, so it's kind of weird, but it works.
It's something.
I've even known people, I won't disclose names, who will buy one, have it shipped to where they're staying, and then donate it after because it's almost become, well, not quite, but it's almost affordable enough to do that. So dependent are they on their second screen that they will go to those great lengths.
Yes. You can't live without it.
Yeah. Well, that's good advice. And there was all kinds of good advice in this interview. So, Megan, I really appreciate you taking time to tell us your story. And I appreciate all you do behind the scenes at Asher to keep the place running.
Well, thanks, Anthony. And thanks for all you do. Thanks for doing this podcast. It's great.
Well, it's my pleasure. And I want to thank everyone who took the opportunity to listen to this episode of the Asher Marketing Podcast. We will be back next time with another great guest, and we hope you'll join us then.